talk about JavaScript loops. Uh, if you've been following our tutorial, you may have discovered that we touched on some aspect of loops in our previous sessions. Uh, Here we're going to try to focus exclusively on loops to see some of the options available to us. Uh, let's start with for loop. Uh, you may have seen this before. For let I equals to 0, I think we touched on this in our previous tutorial. Lesson 5. Then I plus plus. Then we can do console.log hi. Okay. So what is going on here? This first part of the loop before the parenthesis is known as initialization. The second part is known as expression. The third part, which is the last part, inside this parenthesis is known as increment. So there are three parts inside our loop condition. Okay? So inside our loop, or iterator, so to speak. So the first part is initialization. We are setting the variable I to 0. So we're initializing this variable 0. And then this is our condition. I has to be less than 5, or I is less than 5, then we increment for as long as this condition is met. We log the values to the console. So I'm in Chrome. Let's see what we get. We get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this loop is running 5 times. So we're getting 5 values starting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So it goes on until I is less than 5. Okay. We can also, so for our for loop, we use for loop when we know beforehand the length of the value we are trying to loop through. So here we know the length is 5. We could have an array here. We can have const names equals I can have a shla, and then can have John, then we'll have Karim. Okay, then I can have Neka, like that. Okay, say we wish to loop through this array. Of course, what we have here is not going to work because there's nothing here that is indicating that we wish to loop through this array. Okay, so this array has indices and values. Each of the values here, they have their own index. Shala occupies 0 index. It has value Shala. John occupies 1 index, index 1, and value John. Like that, index 2, index 3. Okay, so we wish to loop through this. We have to figure a way to indicate that we are trying to do something with this array assigned to the variable names. Okay, so we wish to start from index 0. So let I equals to 0. Like we said, when we use let to initialize a variable, we wish to change the variable across our program. Okay, so I is 0, and then here, which is our expression, rather than just doing 5, we can do this. We can do I less than. It turns out our array has a property known as length. Maybe we talk about array exclusively later. But now array has a property known as length. That property length gives us the length of our array. So instead of just using an arbitrary value here like we did before now, we can just say names.length like that, plus plus. Then rather than logging hi to the console, we can do something like names hi. Okay, so this hi inside this square bracket, it's saying log each of the value inside this array, if that makes sense. So if I save this, go to our Chrome, you get Shola, John, Karim, Nika. So each of the values are being logged to the console. If I wish to log their respective indices, what I'm going to do is I can say hi, okay, and the name's hi. Let's see what we get. Hi. So the hi is the index. So index 0, Shola, index 1, John, index 2, like that. Good. So when we use for loop, we know beforehand the length of the value we're trying to loop through. Okay. Now what if we don't know the length beforehand? We don't know the length of the value where we hope to loop through. That is where while loop comes into play. So we have while loop, we have do loop. Let's start with while loop. And we have to be careful with while and do loop so that we don't run into infinite recursion. So the loop keeps going, because this is while syntax. I say while, parenthesis, then curly braces. Whatever we have here will loop indefinitely for as long as the value we have here is true. For as long as the condition we set here is true. Whatever we do here, we go on indefinitely. So if I were to say while true, and then here I do console.log this will run indefinitely. Maybe even, what is it called? Crash our machine. So I'm not going to do this, but just know that the way this works is for as long as the condition here is true, whatever we have here is going to run. Okay? So for our while, let me start with a basic example. I can say let count equals to 0. Okay? And I can say while count is less than 6. Then inside here I can say console.log we loop 6 times. Okay? And then I can increment this loop. I can increment count. So this statement inside this, no, not statement actually, because these are expressions anyway. But these expressions inside this code block, we evaluate, we return value for as long as the expression inside this parenthesis is true. So for as long as count is less than 6, this runs, and then we increment like this. Let's see what we get in our console. We loop 6 times. Okay? We loop 6 times. I'm getting we loop 6 times. 6 times. Okay? I'm getting we loop 6 times. 6 times. So this runs, we loop 6 times. It's doing it 6 times. That's why you have this 6 here. Okay? Good. let's try another y. If I do let total equals to 0, then I do let count equals to 1. Okay, I can say y count is less than or equals to 10. Okay, then I can say total plus equals to count. Okay, so I'm incrementing total by every count. Okay, of course I could have written this like this. This syntax is the same as this. Total plus count. Okay, but I prefer the first one because the first one is more elegant. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this, then go back to this. So total plus equals count. So I can also increment count plus equals 1. Okay, initially count was set to 1. Okay, so I'm incrementing count by 1 for as long as this condition is true. I'm also incrementing total by count for as long as this condition is true. So here I can do console.log total. Let's see what we get. We get 55. Okay, so total keep incrementing for as long as count is less than or equals to 10. Okay, so here we don't even know the length at which we wish to loop. Okay, because think of it, we don't even know what total is. So we set our initial value of total to 0, and then we keep looping until this condition is met, and then we get our total. If I set this to 5, we're going to get a different value, 15. Okay, good. Now let's talk about do while. This is while loop. We can talk about do while. For our do while, the syntax is this: do while. So our do while will run at least once, even if the condition here is false. Okay? It will run at least once, even if the condition here is false. It will run all the same if the condition here is true. So we still have to be careful, because if we set this to true and then we do something here, this loop will run indefinitely. Okay? So the condition for this is do, the code here for do will run for as long as this condition is true. It will also run at least once, even if the condition here is false. Alright? So let's do let's do something for the loop. Let's say let num equals 0. Okay? Then we can do console.log num. Then I'll do num plus plus. Okay. And I want to set a condition and say do y num is less than 3. Okay. So for as long as num is less than 3, this loop will run. Even if this condition is false, this loop will run once. Okay, let's see what we get. We get 0, 1, 2, which makes sense because initially we set our num to 0. Okay, we're logging that, then we're incrementing it, and then this loop runs for as long as num is less than 3. So starting from 0, it keeps going until num is less than 3. Okay, so that's do while for you guys. Let's move on. We've talked about for loop, we've talked about while loop, we've talked about do while. Okay, we're still going to stay with for loop. There are variants of them. Let's go back to our array. You have const names equals Bolanle, name is proper now. Bolanle Tokbe Sharon. Morris Sharon. Okay. So say we wish to do this with for loop, but we don't want to use the traditional for loop that we used the other time. There are some new syntax we can use. We can use for off. For off will get us the values inside our arrays. Sorry, inside our array. So I can do for const name of names. Remember we said for of. So for we set a variable of our array. Then inside it I can say console.log name. This should get us each of the values we have here. So we have Bolanle Tokbe, Sharon, Shegun. Okay, so when we wish to print when we wish to get the value of a collection, we use for of. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I can apply this to just string as well. If I do, instead of collection, I can apply this to primitive. Let's try that. If I do const str equals name, okay, then I can say for const s of str console.log s. What do we get? Let's see. We get each of the letter of the string name, like that. But I don't think you will be needing this, or you'll be using this in real world situation. But I just thought I should show you that. There is also for in. If you've been following with that tutorial, I have also done something like this. So we can have an object. So maybe you have const user. We have an object, and then I can do this. I've explained this before. But even if you set the key in an object to something other than a variable, the JavaScript interpreter, to something other than a string, the JavaScript interpreter still interprets it as a string. Okay, so if I say name is Ola, for instance, okay, then I say gender is male. Okay, say I wish to loop through this. Okay, so I wish to loop through this, then I can say for const key in user. Okay, then I can say console.log key, okay, user key. So this is going to get me the key. This key property of user, like I use here, is going to get me the value. So let me just do this and see what we get. So we get name, Ola, gender, male. So that is 4 in. Okay, 4 in. Okay. We can also do, I don't want to do it too long in this. There's also another one we could have done here to look through this. What is going on? Okay, say I do for const key value I don't know, let me try, of object dot entries user. I don't know if this is going to work, but let me just try. Console.log key value. Let me see. Okay, it works. So this is name, Ola, gender, male. Okay, so that works. That's another variant of our for of loop used on an object. Okay. There's another one for each. So we have a collection dot for each. Let's go to Harry. This time let's do fruit. Const fruit. So we have apple, orange, banana, like this. Then say we wish to loop through this with for each. Then we start with the collection name. We say fruits dot for each. This is the syntax. Okay, it takes a callback function here. We feed it a variable. So I'm going to do fruits. Okay, and then here, what do we wish to do? We can do console.log fruit. Pay attention to the syntax. Fruit dot for each. Okay, so you have this fruit. Okay, for each fruit, console.log fruit. Let's see what we get. So we get an apple, orange, banana. All right, so that's for each. Okay, there's this popular one in React. Okay, I'm not going to it's known as map. So we can do collection.map. It's quite similar to what we did the other time, but it's just like instead of for each we have fruits.map. Okay, so here I'm not going to use parentheses this time. I'm just going to do fruits. This is JavaScript, our function. So we don't need to use parentheses here. They're indefinite like console.log fruits. You see, we still get our values. Let me do one more for our map. I'm not using fruits anymore. Let me say const values equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I can say values.map. Okay, then here I say var. I say return var multiply by var. So for each of this loop, we're going to get value multiplied by value. That each of this value is going to be, we're going to multiply each of these by that value, if that makes sense. So here we go. Oh, what did I do? Oh, sorry, I didn't log any result to a console, so I can do console.log. Then I'll bring this back. This should work. So for each of the values we have inside of our array, we are getting the square of the value. So the first one was 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Second one was 2. See? 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the second one was 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Third, 3. 3 times 3. 4 times 4. 5 times 5. Like that. Okay, we also have this filter loop. I'm still going to stick with my value. Okay, so how do I filter through this now? Okay, so I have values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What filter does is it filters elements based on a condition. Okay? What if I decide to filter out even numbers in this number collection? How do I go about that? I can do const evens, okay? Then I can do values dot filter. Okay, there's a callback function. It takes a value, then here I can say value modulus 2 is equals to 0. Okay, and then I can say console.log evens. Okay, so I'm starting with this array which comprise some values, numbers, and then I'm using the dot filter loop method to loop through these values. So this is the syntax, although I'm assigning to a variable here just to make our program a bit cleaner. So I'm saying values.filter, okay? Then it takes an argument value, and then I'm returning, okay, value modulus 2. If value modulus 2 returns 0, that is, if I divide a number here by 2 and the remainder is 0, console.log that number. So here should give us even numbers, because when you divide even numbers by 2, the remainder is 0. Let's see our. So we get 2 and 4. That makes sense. 2 is an even number. 4 is an even number. If I try to go for odd numbers, okay, I can say var modulus 2, it's not equals to 0. Then I can say console.log odds. Let's see what we get. We get 135. These are the odd numbers. Okay? So that's filter. The filter elements based on a condition. We can also do our reduce. We can also do reduce. Say I wish to calculate the sum of the values inside my value array. I can use reduce to do that. Okay. So what do? I can do const sum equals values dot reduce. Okay, so because our reduce is going to take, okay, there's a callback function inside of this. We're going to pass arguments into this callback function, and we're going to pass arguments, two arguments. The first one is the accumulation. The second argument is the current. So the first one is accumulation of everything. The second argument is the current number here. Okay, so I'm trying to get the sum, then I have my arrow syntax here. Then I can say accumulation plus current. Because I'm trying to get the sum, I have to initialize the value of my sum. So I have to set the value of sum to something prior to me getting the eventual sum. So to do that, I can set the initial value of sum to 0. You see? If I save this, no, if I say, let me log the sum to the console. So this is console.log sum. Let's see what we get. We get 15. This looks more elegant compared to the while loop that we did the other time. For the while loop, I think we did up to 10. Let's see whether we'll get the same. 8, 9, 10. Let's see. What do we get? We get 55. If you pay attention, the other time we were doing while loop, when we did count less than or equals to 10, our total evaluated to 55. So for our reduce here, we're also doing it, we're adding, although the syntax is different. It depends, the one you like, you prefer among the two. So this is our reduce loop. Let's see another one. There's another one known as sum and every. Let's try for that. We can have okay, so I have values. I can say console.log values dot sum. Okay, this also takes a callback function. Let's say I have pass var here, and I can do var modulus 2, var modulus 2, go back, straight comparison equals to 0. Okay, so let me not tell you. Let's see what we get. So this is our values, right? So values.sum. Let's see our result, and then I'll explain what is going on. Get true. Sum. So what this is doing is this. This condition is saying, okay, get me true. Log true if one of these condition passes. So we're saying values.sum, value, okay, value modulus 2 equals to 0. That is, when we divide each of the value here by 2, are we getting a remainder of 0 in any of this value? Obviously, when we do for 2, remainder is 0. When we do for 4, remainder is 0. For 6, remainder is 0. So it's doing some, okay, one of these is passing, one of these condition is passing for the numbers we have here. So we get true. Okay? If I do not equals to 0 as well, I think we should still get true, because we have odd numbers here. So we still get true. Okay? Good. If we do for every, let me see. For every, I think we should get false, because every has to pass for everything. Let's see what we get. So we get false. So this condition did not pass for every value that we have here. That's why we're getting false. Okay, so for some, the condition is true for at least one. For every, the condition is true for all the values. The condition has to be true for all the values. But since the condition here is not true, because if you divide each of the values here by 2, the remainder is not going to be equal to 0. Okay? So if I divide 1 by 2 now, I don't get 0 remainder. So this is not true. So this is false. Okay? We've talked about map before, but I'm just going to touch on this a bit before we close this session. So I have const map. We said before now that while we were talking about data types in JavaScript, we said maps are improvement on JavaScript objects, because the reason why they were designed for AS6 is to make up for the limitations of JavaScript objects, in that maps allow us to manage data more efficiently, if you remember. So here what we do is we call our new constructor map. Okay, and then inside here we can have a key value. Okay, so our key value, so the first one, I'm going to use an empty function for my key, and then I'm going to say hello FM. The second property, I'm going to use an empty array, and in here I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. Okay, like that. Let's keep it simple like that. And then I want to loop through this. We can go back to our for loop, and then this works just fine. It's so easy to, I don't want to use the word easy, but it's more convenient to loop through maps than objects, because in order for us to loop through objects, sometimes we have to pass our object into object.entries. If you pay attention in this tutorial, I've done that. When you pass your object, your JavaScript object, into the object.entries method, it gets converted to map in that program flow. Okay, so here I can do for const key value of, okay, I made a mistake here, key value of map. So what do we get? You can say console.log key, then value. See what we get. So for we're getting our key and value. The first one, the key, is an empty function. The value is a string that says hello function. Second one is an empty array, and then the value 1, 2, 3. So I'm using this, I'm exercising this liberty to set my key part of the map property to any data type. Like we said, this could have been string or anything, and it will still have worked. Okay. Okay, let's go to set. For set, we use a set new set, use set constructor, and then we can set values inside here. So we wish to loop through this. What do? We can do for const value of set. Then we do console.log value. Okay, let's see what we get. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me show you something. Say I do this 2, 2, 3, 3. Okay, and let's see what we get. See, I'm still getting 1, 2, 3. Even though I have 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. That's because it's a set. It doesn't allow for duplicates. Even if you enter duplicate there, it's going to like output the numbers one at a time. It doesn't allow for duplicates. That's one peculiar thing with sets. Okay. I think that's for our loops. I know eventually in the course of this series we're still going to come across loops. Okay, but I hope you've learned something in this session. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later.